Okay, here's what we got. We've got something that's just absolutely kind of amazing. I saw this morning. There were some protests outside of Breitbart News in wherever the hell Breitbart News is. It was on Sunday, I think. And there were some protesters out there. And then even, and there's a guy named, I think, Fleccas Talks. I've never seen him before, but he's getting to be like, hey, look at that. He's getting to be like my absolute hero, this guy. Because he just did an incredible job of basically interviewing these liberal clowns and allowing them to be clown themselves. Now, I generally don't want to run whole clips and stuff like this, but this is just too good to pass up. And besides, stopping the clip would mean something like hitting the stop button on the clip, but that doesn't work on this software. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. You switch it live and then it goes and it stays and then it plays. You delete the shot, it keeps playing. I'm telling you, it's possessed. It's possessed by demons. But let's go ahead and I'm going to run this. And I learned my lesson last time, especially until we get a decent audio board in here. I'm not going to try and talk over this. But I think it's like 3 minutes, something like that. And I'm just going to let it play and then we'll make some comments about it afterwards because it really almost writes itself. All right, here we go. Now let's just roll that.
Breitbart lies! Breitbart hides! Breitbart lies! Breitbart hides! Breitbart.
Which Breitbart lives are we protecting?
Lies.
All right, guys, it's Fleccas. We're here at the Breitbart protest. People are out here getting mad about some stuff Breitbart did. Let's find out what exactly is going on. Fleccas Talks. Who are you here for?
I'm here to protest Breitbart.
I thought you were going to be pro-Breitbart based on your nice outfit. What's your sign going to say?
I think it's going to say honk if you hate Trump. You hate Trump.
Honk if you hate Trump. Coming your way. Well, what's the plan for that?
I mean, I just hold it up. It's a sign. It's.
And people beep their horn?
Yeah.
Who are you with?
Fleccas Talks.
Okay, great.
What's your sign say?
It says, petty, greedy, mean little journalist. To be honest, I didn't make it. I was handed it while I was here.
Yeah, what is this? What are we on here?
This is Fleccas Talks.
Fleccas Talks?
What are some things Breitbart's put out that's propaganda and hate?
Lies about immigrants, about...
He's out. What does your sign say?
It says Breitbart's LA's...
Fleccas Talks.
Focus on.
Donald Trump is a fascist, and he needs to be removed at the soonest possible time. Because in the name of humanity, what it will mean if he's allowed to stay in power.
Who'd you vote for?
I didn't vote.
Most Americans aren't media literate enough to understand that there's a difference between commentary and reportage.
Change the world one honk at a time.
Sells fear.
Don't you think that's true?
I don't know. Which article are you talking about?
I've only heard about Breitbart. I actually don't know too much about them.
Defending the indefensible.
Who did you vote for, I asked?
Defending the indefensible.
Well, that's a weird person to vote for. Did you write that in?
No free press equals no free country. Include all press.
So you're pro-Breitbart?
No, I'm pro all news. Access to the truth is where it's at. Not Breitbart. But they have the right to be out there.
Fleccas Talks.
What is it?
Fleccas Talks?
Never heard of it.
Thanks.
You white supremacy. You white supremacy.
There's kids here.
Oh, so they shouldn't know the truth?
You shouldn't curse in front of kids.
Why shouldn't you?
Because be an adult.
Everything Donald Trump's doing isn't just as horrible. You know what? I'm starting to wonder who you really were.
Yeah, you should know by now.
What's your media organ?
Fleccas Talks.
What?
Fleccas Talks.
I don't know what that is.
Hey, what do we got here?
Just holding the flag.
America first?
No, actually.
What do we got here? Why are they hiding?
Why are they hiding? Money. It's greed. It's greed. Actually, are they even working today? It's a weekend.
It's a Sunday. They're not here.
This is what democracy looks like.
What does democracy look like?
It looks like people exercising their First Amendment right, and it's a beautiful thing, brother.
Didn't you say Breitbart's doing that too?
I would say they are technically, yes.
Can I ask who you guys are here representing?
Fleccas Talks.
Sorry?
Fleccas Talks? Why don't you guys like Steve Bannon?
I'm not a fan of Nazi racists.
What has he done Nazi racist?
You know.
No, they're going to edit this how they want to.
No, we won't cut this. Just what has Steve Bannon done to be racist and a Nazi? That's like a very big claim.
But we're not going to answer that right now because I don't like to be taken out of context.
I don't like to be touched, so thank you. What do you think?
Sorry?
What do you think?
Oh, I'm just standing here, but,
I heard one person starve, I heard many people laughing.
Oh my goodness gracious, that is a gold mine. It's an absolute gold mine, and there's so much information there that is so useful to people who are thinking about these things. Where do you start with this, right? Where do you start with this? Let's just start with a couple of them. Here, you've got this lady comes out and says, I'm protesting Breitbart News. And he says, why are you protesting? He says, because they're racist and they say racist things and they're Nazis. He said, well, name something racist and Nazi that they said. And she says, well, I don't really know too much about Breitbart. No fooling. That's a pretty good classic. And by the way, before we go any further, for those of you who may not be savvy enough to know the difference between commentary and reportage, this is commentary. What we just showed you was reportage. There's a guy out there trying to sound as positively brilliant as he speaks French. He has a French word. He knows what the word reportage means. I suspect he probably doesn't know what the word reportage means. But for those of you media savvy out there enough to know the difference between commentary and reportage, this is commentary. The guy who's cursing and saying, Donald, swearing in front of kids, so self-important. I think, I think probably my favorite moment is somebody says to him, I don't know if I trust you. Who are you again? He says, Fleccas Talks. And he says, I've never heard of you. And he says, good. That's absolutely epic. Where else? What else do you say about these people? The classic, of course, and this is them in a nutshell. This is the left in a nutshell. The classic woman was the one that was saying, we're for free press. We're for free press. And he said, so you're pro Breitbart then? No, we're against Breitbart. Well, Breitbart's a member of the free press. Well, everybody should have a right to speak, but we're against Breitbart, but we're for the free press. Good Lord Almighty. What do you do? What do you do with this? I've used this word before on these people. I think it's the only word that applies. They're not serious. They're not serious people. And it's so obvious that they're not serious people. And, it's actually, I don't know how to put this. I just don't know how to put this other than this, so I'll just come out and say it. I wish we had worthier enemies than this, Somebody, I think it might have been McClellan at the beginning of the Civil War when he was taking the Army of Potomac down to Virginia by sea and was going to, end the war in 2 weeks, little Napoleon. And I think it was McClellan who said, all I hope is that we can find foemen worthy of your steel. Well, that's kind of my hope too, I would hope we could find foemen worthy of our steel, but I don't find foemen worthy of our steel out there anywhere. These people are idiots and they're clowns. They're just idiots and clowns. So, there you go. I wish I could. We're working on it. Technically, we were trying to figure out how we could just stop the tape and comment on them as we went through, but we actually couldn't because the software won't let us. We'll figure out a way to do that. But major kudos to Fleccas Talks there. I've never seen him before, but this on the street kind of thing is the greatest. It goes back to the old thing we always say, liberals want conservatives to shut up and conservatives want liberals to keep talking. But again, don't you see how important it is actually? You think, it's a chance for us to have a little snark and kind of fool around at the expense of these liberals out there, but it's actually much more important than that. It's an indication that the people who are on the other side of the political aisle from us don't have any idea what they're talking about, and they admit it to their credit. What is it about the Breitbart article? I don't know much about Breitbart. Actually, I take it back. My favorite moment was not the good part. My favorite moment was when they're standing outside protesting, and somebody says, "Yeah, we want to show them, that we're fighting their fascism." And then the protester said, they're working today, right? And he says, no, it's a Sunday, nobody's inside. And I just thought that was absolutely all you need to know about the left, right? They're out there, they're doing their virtue signaling, and they're out there and they're talking about, and there's nobody in the building because it's Sunday. It just writes itself. But foemen worthy of our steel, this is not an argument between two philosophical schools of thought here. This is not an argument between two different groups of people with different ideologies. This is not that. Oh, yeah, I have a headline. There it is. It's not that at all. It's a group of people who go to meetings like Tea Party rallies and have considerate, long debates, 15, 20 people talking about, as I said, talking about the Federal Reserve and all the rest of it, versus people that can chant. Hey, hey, ho, ho. This Breitbart news has got to go. Why? Well, I don't know. You're supposed to know. What is it about Breitbart you can't stand? I really don't know much about Breitbart. So why are you here then, right? Why are you here? You don't know anything about Breitbart. You can't put your finger on any one of the racist comments that you're here to protest. Then why are you here? And this is the answer to its own question, right? Why are you here? Well, if you really felt that this was fascism and you had a long list of grievances and you could list out what the things were that were just driving you nuts about Breitbart's reporting, and there's some Breitbart reporting I'm not too fond of, but then you'd be protesting for a reason. But when you come down and you admit you don't know, then why are you here? This is the point. This may not sound like a trivial point, but it's not. It's the point. It's the major point about the whole thing. They're protesting for something and they don't know why. They're protesting in favor of the free press. That's why we want to shut down this free press organization up here, is because we want freedom of the press. That's why we have to shut down this news agency to preserve freedom of the press. These people are not just stupid. They're ignorant, and they're willfully ignorant. And I get the feeling, I don't know, Neil's a little under the weather today, but I get the feeling, Neil, that they don't want to know, that they don't know and they don't want to know, that knowing is tough. It's just absolutely tough to go out there and have the basic information. So what's going on? What's going on when people are out there protesting and they don't know what they're protesting about? Now, in this particular case, it didn't look to me like a paid protest, because frankly, if it was a paid protest, someone needs to get some of their money back, because that was absolutely, major recruiting poster for Breitbart News and so on. But they're not serious and they're not smart. And even though they like to bandy around words like reportage, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what reportage is. They're just standing there on the street trying to show people driving by, but mostly trying to show each other how unbelievably in-depth and smart they are and how morally pure they are. We're going to go down there on Sunday afternoon and we're going to protest the rising fascism from a small building that's not occupied on Sunday by people who are writing words down while they're using sticks and fists and so on to get their way on the street. This is the result of what we have planted. And somebody, Warren Miller, just posted an article on the Facebook Live feed, says, the dumbing down of our kids, it's not just dumbing them down. It's enslaving them, is what it is. People like us have a hard time understanding the mentality of this. We just don't get it. But Evan Sayet, who I've interviewed a few times, and wrote a tremendous book called The Kindergarten of Eden, and he turned it into a video DVD called A Deplorable Mind. He basically has this whole thing figured out, and I think he's absolutely right. He ought to know. He was a former liberal, and I used to be a lot more liberal, although I refuse to call myself a liberal because I was never these people, ever. But what Evan Sayet says is basically true. He says, look, liberals hate the idea of war. We came out of this gigantic war, and they want to show everybody that they don't ever want to go through this again, or at least want anybody else's kids to go through this again. And so what they've done somehow, progressivism, has said that basically conflicts arise from differences of opinion. You see, that's why conflicts arise, according to the left. I go on Team USA, and the Nazis are going Team Hitler, and therefore we have a war because we have differing opinions on things. It's a puerile, adolescent view of the world, but this is how they think. So their attitude is, if we could just get rid of nationalism, we'd get rid of war. Easy peasy, nothing to it. Get rid of nationalism, we'll get rid of war. Well, how many wars have there been that are civil wars? How many wars have there been that were supranatural wars? it's a defective idea to begin with. But Evan's right on this. He's absolutely right. In order to understand the liberal mindset, you have to understand this. They think that since any kind of a conflict, any kind of injustice is due to a difference of opinion, the answer is to not have an opinion. The answer is to never, ever make a value judgment about anything. You can never, ever say that this thing is better than that thing. Because if you do that, you're making a judgment. And if you're making a judgment, you're hurting somebody's feelings. And next thing you know, they're going to get all upset and maybe come and kill you. So their attitude towards the world is just agree with everything and simply nod and go along to get along. Not only are they not willing to defend what they believe in, that kind of expect that from progressives, They're not exactly, social justice warriors who fall down dead faint with the vapors when somebody, opens up a pen knife. They're not exactly the strongest people in the world, mentally or emotionally or physically for that matter. But they do have this unbelievable ability to simply shut down their mind. And this is what they accuse us of all the time. And so let's just have a debate, I mean, we accuse them of being stupid. They accuse us of being stupid. Technically, they accuse us of being evil, but they know they can't accuse us of being stupid because we out-argue them. And so if I'm saying they're stupid and they're saying we're stupid, this could be resolved. This is a testable hypothesis. This is not simply something that we just have to leave to supernatural faith or belief. It's a testable hypothesis. If they say we're wrong and if we say they're wrong, we should be able, through a series of debates, which can be cross-checked by hundreds of thousands of people live on the internet for factual accuracy, we should be able to figure out which side is right and which side is wrong. But we have never had foemen worthy of our steel. I might have mentioned before that this was a big concern of mine when I first got into this business, especially when I was doing the live speeches. I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to make mistakes. And I'm very careful about that, but sometimes they slip through. And especially when I was doing the first of my live speeches, I was thinking, especially when I'd go to a place like a college or a university, someplace kind of hostile, I was terrified that somebody would stick up a question and I'd just be stumped, I've got no answer for that. I don't know. I guess maybe I just got to rethink my theory. And I worried about that for a long time. And I don't worry about it anymore because I've been doing this for 10 years out there now, and that person doesn't exist. The intellectual who's going to shut down the conservative arguments in favor of freedom and small government isn't out there. And the reason he's not out there is because their arguments don't work. If you're a smart person and you're capable of working with facts and reason and logic, I'm not going to run into them against us on the left, because if they have those qualities, they won't be a member of the left. They just won't. They'll go someplace where things make sense and we can say one thing and do the same thing. So there they are out there. Joe Detroit, cool name, on the live Facebook feed says, some people just want change, and it's all right for people to want change, but really, isn't that the one thing we learned from Barack Obama, right, 8 years ago? Hope and change. Hope for what? Change to what? These are fundamental questions that any child, I think, is capable of asking, if not answering. Change to what? Hope for what? Mr. Obama, turned out, left that part of the form blank. And the reason he left it blank was because he knew that people would fill in their own section of that form, hoping for wealth redistribution, or hoping for an articulate president, or we're hoping for this, or we're hoping for that. He didn't want to specify it because if he specified it, he'd lock out people's fantasies about him. And he's the first person to admit it. He says, I consider myself a blank wall that people project their hopes and fears onto, or whatever their hopes. And it's like, yeah, blank wall, that part I'll go along with for sure. Anyway, you look at a video like this and you realize that we are on the right side. I've never seen a group of people on the left that intimidated me in terms of intellectually, morally, historically, factually. Never seen it. Never seen it. I've seen guys like, I don't know how you pronounce his name. Is it Cenk Uygur? Whatever. The guy on Young Turks. I've seen him argue, and his response to an argument is, if you're losing the argument, then the thing to do is to get louder. And if getting loud doesn't work, then you want to get louder and you want to get as profane as possible, because once you start dropping F-bombs, that obviously means that, you've got the situation so carefully iced that you can just go into those kind of territories. He is just as someone else, is just like all of them on the left. He's simply angry and upset or excited about things, and he can't tell you why, can't explain why. There are things that Donald Trump does that I like very much, appointments that he makes that I like very much. There's some things he does that I don't like very much, and that's because I have a philosophy, and the philosophy is internally consistent, and I don't have to constantly worry about, is somebody going to catch me on this? Even the so-called giants, you see, like Robert Reich or what's his name? Oh, for God's sakes, how could I have Noam Chomsky? And you see their best arguments, and sometimes it's, but just a quick thought, and they're pretty much dismissed. I remember watching Bowling for Columbine in Santa Monica, surrounded by liberals, and Michael Moore was just, taking all these shots, and I thought, wow, he's making some really good points there, until I got out to the parking lot. And then walking to my car, I started thinking about some of the things he said, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's just plain a lie. He was talking about how this one of these kids shot another kid, a little black kid, I think it was 5 or 6 shots, some kid. And Michael Moore's rationale for this black child shooting this other child is not that the guardian of that child, the uncle, was drunk or high or whatever, not in the room, and left a gun lying around. That wasn't the argument at all. The argument was that the reason that this child shot this other child is because her mother. Are you sitting down now? I hope you're sitting down. Her mother. The boy's mother had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and take a bus to go to a mall so that she could serve white people food while they're shopping. And Michael Moore puts it in such a way that you just go, my God, no one should have to go through that. And the second that this movie is over, and this magic that happens when the lights go down in a movie theater, the second that spell is broken, I'm walking around going, wait a minute, Michael Moore saying that this kid shot this other kid because mom got up and went to work in the morning? Is that it? She had to take a bus. Well, I've had to take a bus too. I know who doesn't take a bus, and that's Mr. Multimillionaire, hates capitalism, Michael Moore. He doesn't take a bus anywhere. If it gets any bigger, he's going to need a flatbed truck. But he doesn't take a bus. He takes limousines. But put that aside. This woman gets up before dawn in the morning. Well, here's a clue for you, Mikey. You mind if I call you Mike? Okay, lots of people get up early in the morning. Lots and lots of people. And lots of people get up early in the morning to go to work before the light comes up. They get up in the dark in order to go to work. And some people have to get up that early because they have to take public transportation to work. I was one of those people for a few years. And when they get to work, sometimes they have to serve food to people. That's their job. And they don't get to say, no black people here, I only want to serve white people because that will make my misery even deeper. The mother of this child had a job, Mike. She had a job, and she was going to her job, and for some reason or another, this kid was unsupervised. He was left in the hands of an unreliable relative, and he picked up a gun and shot this kid. He didn't do it because his mother was on a bus to go to work to serve white people food. She was working, Mike. She had a job. And guess what? There are millions and millions, tens, 20 millions, maybe 100 million other Americans who do this every single day. They get up in the morning and they go to work. And their children don't shoot other children. So if the cause is mom got up and went to work, left the child, then how come we don't see 50 million shootings a day? Why is this the only case of it? And this is what I'm saying just as an example. It's an example of the weakness of the left's position on everything. It's an example of just how weak everything they believe really, truly is. Shocking. Yeah, you've all heard the story about, liberal kids saying, well, how can you justify having this much phones or this much? Look, you've got your own toys, you've got Xboxes, you've got cell phones. Don't talk to me about wealth redistribution. You're not socialist, you're capitalist, you just feel better about it. So I could go on all day about this, but I think the point's pretty much made by now. We are not against, if we are fighting serious opposition, intellectually serious opposition, we'd have grounds to wonder, are we correct? I do that anyway. But when you find out the quality of the people that we're up against, you realize, no, we're definitely right. And it's not like we're more right than they are, or, or we'll compromise with being who's right, us or them. No, we're right and they're wrong. Pretty simple, really. That's not too much to it. We're right, they're wrong. And the reason we know that we're right and they're wrong is not because I say so. It's because when we come into an argument or a debate about everything, we can lay out facts and data, and they can't. And I remember somebody saying to me a couple of times with these arguments with liberals where they say, well, look, okay, so you've got all these facts and data and stuff, but that doesn't matter. And it's like, lady, the reason I'm taking the position I'm taking is because I've got facts and data. See how it works? That's the reason why I'm taking this position on the argument, because that's not my facts and it's not my data. I didn't go out and make it. It's there when I arrived. I didn't move the facts and data to me. I went to where the facts and the data was and I sat there. That's why you're going to lose this argument, because I have facts and data and you don't. It's not a question of me having studied. It's not a question of me having read a different book that has a different set of facts in it. I know, to some degree, greater than you anyway, what factually happened or happens in the world, and you don't. And you consider that unfair. That's why the left has a term like, well, that may be your truth. No, it's your truth too, lady. You may not like it, but it's your truth as well. If I drop a ball from a tower someplace, it's going to fall at 32 feet per second. Everywhere in the world, no matter how many times you do it, no matter how high, it's going to fall. If you do it with Chinese scientists or Palestinian scientists or vegan scientists or druids or anything, 32 feet per second, everywhere around the world. That's the truth. It's not my truth. And you may think that balls fall at the rate that you think you want them to fall at, or maybe you believe that if you don't want a ball to fall, maybe it'll just hang in the air. You're welcome to believe that. That's your opinion, but it's not the truth. What I'm standing on is the truth. We can tell it's the truth because it can be tested. And that's the essence of rational conservatism. If it turned out that you could protest enough so that war would go away, and if it turned out that all of these things that people like Michael Moore say were true, well, then we'd give that a try, right? But they're always waiting for the new model of human. And everything they do depends on the human Mark II. It hasn't come here yet. Everything. The economic system depends on people making sacrifices, people working as hard for other people as they would for themselves. The left has predicated its entire existence on this. That's fact. That's all you need to know about the left. They believe that other people will work as hard for the collective as they would for themselves. And it's not like, gee, that's a different opinion. It's they're wrong. They're wrong. We're right, they're wrong. See, nothing to it. And the reason we know that they're wrong is because we've seen it in action. And it doesn't take a super genius to say that if you own a farm and you've got a sound of a horse out there in the barn that's trying to give birth to a foal, and the horse is in trouble, if it's your horse and it's 4 o'clock in the morning and 30 degrees outside, if it's your horse, you're going to go out and take care of the horse. If the horse belongs to everybody in the country, you might be inclined to want to sleep in and let somebody else worry about it. And it's just so obvious. It just doesn't even happen. So anyway, that's pretty much it. They're clowns. And the fact that they're clowns is not just something funny to look at. It means that we're right, they're wrong, and we can all go to bed feeling much better about our opinions and much, much worse about the state of education in this country and the level of just vanity and vapidity on the part of many of our citizens in this country, and that's something that can be cured over time too. This message is brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com, who have again graciously allowed us to do a couple of shows full length for our Facebook fans to get people to come on over and join the fun in the crowd for 33 cents a day. We get all this. Firewalls are coming back, by the way, and so are more of these We the People videos on economics for young people, for high school kids or college kids or people like Noam Chomsky, who are 75, 80 years old and still don't understand what money is, or Bernie Sanders, who's never worked a day in his life, who wants to take 94 cents of every dollar that you and I work for so that he can spend it on some stuff that he thinks he believes in. No, we've got to fight these people, and we do it easily because they can be defeated easily. You just have to know your way around an argument. So, again, thanks to our members at BillWhittle.com. We'll go into the second segment here, which is a terror attack in London just a short while ago. One of these things happens, right? And how many times have we all experienced this? One of these things happens, and we think to ourselves, I'll bet it's Islamic terrorism, but But let's not get carried away. Let's not jump to any conclusions, unlike the left, which is automatically it's going to be some conservative Christian group. Unlike them, when I hear a story about this, I have a suspicion, but I don't have evidence. Now, speaking of suspicions without evidence, we were told that the man who went plowing through a crowd of people, as I saw the story, had killed 2 and injured many, but I think some more of those people are going to die, stabbed a police officer and all the rest of it. So the question is, well, it sounds to me like it might be another case of the Allahu Akbars, but maybe not. Now, the report that I saw had a picture, hang on a second, Neil, had a picture of the assailant. And the assailant, yeah, let's go ahead and just put that up there. Yeah, it's him. The newspaper headline said that this man appeared to be Asiatic. Really? That's funny. Doesn't look Chinese to me, and he doesn't look Japanese to me. He doesn't look like any of those things to me. He appears to be Asiatic to the degree that maybe he's from the east of, the Thames. But I'm going to just take a wild shot now, a shot in the dark, just going to go way, way, way out on a limb and just guess that a man with a long beard whose head is shaved is in fact a Muslim, and that his attack on British citizens just trying to go around their business had something to do with his religion. And if it turns out to be true, you can only imagine my surprise. Only imagine my surprise. So what do we do about all this? This is the challenge of our age. And we face a difficult, very difficult task here. And I owe it to that other guy I used to work with, that bald guy. What's his name? Never mind. He has a show somewhere, right? Seen by literally dozens of people. Andrew Clavin pointed this out. He said that so much of Western behavior in the second half of the 20th century and into the 21st century can be explained very easily just simply by Nazism. And you would add communism to this, but communism didn't have the kind of press that the Nazis had because so many reporters were left-wingers. If you had, see the difference between Nazism and communism, the reason that people recoil at the thought of Nazis and not so much at the thought of communists is because there's footage of Nazis and there's no footage of communists. They killed more people. Stalin killed more people in the Soviet Union than Hitler did in his death camps. They had death camps in the Soviet Union too. They called them gulags. You were worked to death in mines, coal mines. They built a canal from, I think, the White Sea to the Baltic Sea. And something like 125,000 people were killed building this canal. And when it was over, Yagoda, the secret police chief who basically spearheaded this thing, when it was over, he presents it to Stalin, this incredible White Sea Canal that was built on the backs of hundreds of thousands of slave laborers and killed 125,000 of them. It killed 125,000 people. And they're riding along in this canal, and Yagoda's just beaming away. But unfortunately, because it had to be done so quickly and because it was done with slave labor and all the rest, the canal was not deep enough for any significant cargo barges to go down. So it's a very nice scenic waterway, but in terms of accomplishing anything useful, it's too shallow and too small to be of any use. See, now that's where I kind of catch myself. Here's where an education comes in handy, and I'll just reference back to those Breitbart people out there. If I told you that story, and I told it to the Breitbart people, the protesters, not the Breitbart staff, if I said, hey, they killed 125,000 people. That's a big Super Bowl game plus a Dodger game of people building this canal. And other people were ruined for their lives. And the canal was not big enough for barges to go down. What would you say about that? They'd say, oh, what a terrible mistake, or what a horrible tragedy. And I would say, having had a little bit of education with these people, I would say, no, you misunderstand. Whether or not cargo barges could go down that canal is not why the canal was built. That is of secondary importance and distant secondary importance. The reason the canal was built was to kill people. The canal was built as a prestige project for the Soviet Union to show people overseas that the workers' paradise was capable of doing all these miraculous industrial things that Americans and British and Germans and so on do in their sleep. So it was a propaganda coup, I suppose. But that's not even really the main reason that it was built. The main reason it was built because it killed 125,000 people and maybe as many as 1 million people working on this thing at one time or another in the slave labor camps. That's why it was built. It was built to show the citizens of the Soviet Union that if you should say anything, even remotely critical of the communist regime, and as time went on, it got even more than that. If you were a relative who was overseas, you were too risky. If you had a relative who was overseas in the Soviet Union, then chances are you've been poisoned by Western thinking about freedom and all the rest, and so you're killed. Why take chances, right? You don't. The terror of the Soviet system, it killed so many more people than the Nazis did, was not even that. It wasn't even that they executed you for doing something or saying something against Stalin. That alone is repulsive, but that's not why they killed a lot of people. A lot of people were killed prophylactically, which means that people were killed who had not committed any crimes. They were loyal Soviet citizens. They were many, many, many soldiers coming back from World War II, defended the Soviet homeland with their lives and fought with incredible bravery and tenacity, and they were just taken out and killed prophylactically. That means that did you plot against the state? No. Did you say anything bad against the state? No. But you're more likely to than other people because of your foreign influence or because you were in a German prison camp and you got to see how wonderful the Western world is from behind the barbed wire of a Nazi prison camp. So you were killed there too. In any event, we've got you got pictures of the Nazis bulldozing corpses. If we had pictures of the communists, they'd be just as vilified, and so on for the rest of it. But we now have a very difficult problem on our hands. And as Andrew Klavan said, all of this problem comes from a collective sense of guilt about Nazism. Certainly the Germans experience this, but it's not just a German thing. It's a Western thing. It's a liberal thing. The guilt over what happened during those two gigantic socialist collectivist horrors has so pervaded intellectuals and leftists, but I repeat myself, that they, on some level, either consciously or subconsciously, and many people it's consciously, do not think that the West deserves to survive. They don't think that the West deserves to survive, and so they will do what they have to do to commit suicide, and that's fine. If you want to commit suicide, if you're a soldier or somebody like that, then I'd love to talk you out of it, and I've tried to do that in the past. However, if you're going to commit suicide as a culture, that's something that I have a say in. And that's basically what's happening in Europe. The fig leaf that they're using is that we need new workers because of our socialism pyramid. You have to have new workers at the bottom. You have to have more workers at the bottom than you do have people at the top. 4 people can support 1, but 1 cannot support 4. So there you go. That's the excuse they use. But really on some level, you can tell from people like Angela Merkel that they are using this as an excuse for suicide, and I just think there's no question about it. Low and hum, yeah. Sometimes we have a low hum around here. Working on it, trying to get a nice little studio. Neil's coughing too. So that's it. So what do we do about this? Well, we have got a problem, and the problem is that there are many, many innocent people involved in this, but to pretend that this is not a problem because of that is not going to end well. I think that this business of opening borders, blanket opening borders, is a catastrophe. And I figured out very recently, I hadn't understood this for a while, and I may be wrong, but Angela Merkel and Barack Obama and all the rest of them are globalists. And Angela Merkel and the EU basically feel like Germany should not have any national identity, that Germany should just essentially be a postal address in the supranational structure of the EU, which would eventually be folded into a global economy and a global state which suits those people fine, because the more people they can tell what to do and the more money they can take in taxes, the happier they are. So it occurred to me that Merkel is letting all of these people into the country intentionally, and the reason she's doing it is specifically to destroy German national identity. That's her goal. She knows, and the Prime Minister of France knows, and the Prime Minister of Italy knows, and the Prime Minister of Greece knows, and Great Britain knows, and all of the Scandinavian countries know. All of them know that Europeans are not making enough Europeans. And so they're faced with a choice. Their choice is, shall we give up our cradle-to-grave benefits that we've not only been accustomed to, but which essentially define us as different from those savage Americans over there? Should we give up our cradle-to-grave social benefits in order to retain a country that is Germany or France or Sweden? Or do we just basically bite the bullet and bring in massive numbers of people to maintain the base of our socialist welfare state? And that is cultural suicide. And their answer has been, yeah, we'll keep the benefits. Absolutely, no brainer, easy for them. They'll keep the benefits. So Swedish women are being raped. Well, that's the price you pay for having your free healthcare, right? Free healthcare. So they simply have decided to suicide out. I did a members-only segment of Right Angle that, I don't know, it's going to be pretty controversial. We'll see what the members think about it, because it's our members-only segment. But we were talking about that tweet that Steve King made about we can't rebuild the future with other people's babies. And I looked at the top 10 immigration countries coming into the United States. This affects us, the London Terror thing, because the whole London Terror thing is about immigration of people who do not believe in Western values, throwing open the doors of the West to people who are not only not grateful for that assistance, but they in fact despise the West, and they're here to get rich, score some chicks, and destroy the system. It's not everybody, but that's a significant number of them. And so on this Right Angle, I basically said, if you look at the top 10 countries in terms of immigration to the United States, the top 10 countries, last data we had was 2015. The top 10 countries coming into America, not one of them is a Western country. All of them are third world countries. All of them. Not one of the top 10 countries of immigrants coming to America in 2015 is from a Western nation. And all of them are from third world countries with extremely different cultural backgrounds. Now, Stephen Scott said once they get here, become Americans. And look, on an individual basis, I believe that's very true. People want to question my, my feeling about immigrants. I would remind them that I'm engaged to one. So I'm not against other people coming here to take my job and who speak funny languages. But if you look at the immigration patterns for the United States in 1960, you'll find that all 10 of those countries, of the top 10 countries, were Western countries, and they were what I would call today, it's going to be a racist term, no doubt, they were civilized countries. They were countries that worked. In 1960, the majority of immigration was coming from places like Great Britain and Poland, Italy, all of these countries from the Western tradition, which, as Victor Davis Hanson has elucidated for me on so many different occasions, doesn't just go back to 1945, and it doesn't go back to World War I or World War II. It goes back to 2,500 years ago with the Greek city-states, where ideas of governance and warfare were developed, and they were developed nowhere else in the world, and we are the linear descendants of those ideas. The philosophy of democracy in terms of the people should be the rulers and not some emperor. The idea that the natural world is testable, and that you can find out and discover things about the world as it exists, that it's not just a series of river gods and cloud gods. The idea of justice, jury trials, all of this stuff comes to us from the Greeks and is passed down from the Greeks to the Romans, who had a real republic there for a while, and then it became an empire. And all the way down through history, the Western tradition is it's real. It means something. And Steve said that, well, if I could take a baby from anywhere and turn him into a perfect American. I said, I'm probably inclined to agree with you there, Steve, but the problem is we're not getting immigrants. We're not getting immigrants in the form of container ships filled with babies. That's not how we get immigrants. They come, they bring their culture with them. The melting pot is supposed to work that way. You bring your culture, you assimilate into American culture, and then you bring your own flavor with you, and the alloy changes a little bit. But it's not what we're seeing now. We're not seeing anything like that now. We're seeing the balkanization of the United States, and I just am curious to know why we went in the space of 40 or 50 years from having all the top 10 countries of immigrants into America being from developed nations to having none of them being from developed nations. I believe it's, look, my family, so we're clear on this, when my grandfather came to this country in 1915 from Great Britain, he was descended from, and I am descended from, coal miners and cotton carters. If you don't know what that is, these are 2 or 3 or 4 generations of my family worked in textile mills in Lancashire before they came to America. And a cotton carter is somebody who would have a piece of wood about that big, just about like that. And it had a leather strap on the back, and 2 of them had leather straps on the back, and on the other side were these little metal hooks, kind of like the stuff you use on pet fur. And what a cotton carter would do is somebody would hand him a wad of cotton, just a raw wad of cotton, and the cotton carter would put that on one set of the hooks, and then he would do this, basically. Oops, get the mic out of the way. He would do this, like this. And you wonder, well, all right, so for how long? Well, all day. 10-hour days, 6 days a week, for life. Cotton carding meant that when you were doing this, you were basically aligning the cotton fibers, you're knocking the little tiny seeds out, and you're preparing this wad of cotton, and after 5 or 10 minutes or whatever the length of time is, you'd roll it up into something that looks like a cigar. They'd take it to the spinning department where they'd spin it into cotton thread, and then they'd weave it and so on. So that's where my family comes from. And I'm not trying to claim that that this country should be, obviously it's open to the teeming masses yearning to breathe free. But the thing I guess I'm having a problem with is, having read the inspirational plaque on the base of the Statue of Liberty, I noticed that it doesn't say, give me only your teeming masses yearning to be breathe free. If all we do is take in teeming masses yearning to breathe free, and we don't have any sense of cultural continuity, then the reason that people are coming here in the first place, which is the idea of America, which is built by people from all over the world, but if you overwhelm the ability of that culture to maintain its identity, then you will no longer have the place that people wanted to come to in the first place. And that, I think, would be a tremendous, tremendous, tremendous tragedy. So, there we go. So, yes, another terror attack in London. Another Asian fella with a long beard and no hair, shaved head, lying on a stretcher, being treated by the people he's trying to kill, being treated by them and giving them top-rate medical care that they never in a million years would see in their home countries. Not in a million years. They will never see these kind of medical treatments because their societies are not capable of this kind of cooperation. And so, British medics can I go back to that picture one more time, please? Yeah, there you go. That's all you need to know. There's a man who drove a car through a crowd intentionally, killed a couple of people, was undoubtedly shouting the slogan of mass murder in the 21st century, and was apparently shot by police in an order to try and stop him. He'd stabbed people, stabbed a police officer, I think killed one. I'm not sure. I don't have the details yet. And that man now, as you can see from this picture, is being given medical aid, Western medical aid, which he and the people who he represents and the values that he went and murdered people for not only don't have, but will never have. Never have. They will never, ever have it. And the reason they'll never have it is because people like that on that stretcher are fanatics. They're filled with hate. They hate women. They hate everything. They are failures and losers, and they know it. And so they're going to take everybody down with them. And there you go. So more people are dead, and we continue to allow civilized countries to be infiltrated by people like this savage. That doesn't mean that all Muslims are like this, and it doesn't mean that all Muslims are savages. It does mean that virtually all of the murderers and all of the savages pretty much seem to be of that particular religion. I know the left doesn't like that. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't like it either, but it's true. So you can only imagine my surprise when I found out that it wasn't a radical Lutheran or some lunatic Presbyterian who decided to cut loose and drive a car through a crowd of people. And the beat goes on, and on and on and on. We have, just to close this show, we have virtually unlimited power in the West. We have virtually unlimited power, just even in America. Virtually unlimited military influence in terms of being able to bend other nations to our will if that was our inclination, and we don't, so it's not. We have economic power and money beyond counting. It's really genuinely beyond counting, the amount of wealth that we produce and the amount of wealth that the government takes and so on. Our cultural influence, all of this. We have power that is unimaginable. And what we don't have is willpower anymore. And when I say willpower, I mean fundamental self-respect. Fundamental self-respect. When you find somebody who is no self-respect, you think of somebody in a relationship or something, and one of the two people have no self-respect. They're, what do we call them? We call them doormats. We call them pushovers. They're puppy dogs. They're addicts. They're addicted to the other person's attention and benevolence. They're codependent, and that's what the leadership, not the citizens, but that's what the leadership of the West has become. They become codependent addicts upon being adored and respected and admired by people that are trying to kill them, because that is how they feel they can cleanse themselves of the horrors of Nazism. And I've heard German ministers say that exactly, precisely in the same words. We have to allow these people into our country because of what we did with the Nazis, and even if it means destroying our country, then that's what we have to do. It's a tough challenge because you have to fight this without becoming this, and that's a bit nuanced. Anyway, that's it. We got a little late start, got a little late finish, did a whole hour today. Thanks again to our members at BillWhittle.com who have graciously, on many occasions, emailed us saying, while we appreciate the members-only benefit, we think that this message should get out there. And that's why those people are members, by the way. It's not because of the membership benefits they get. It's because they think that 33 cents a day is worth it in order to get the truth out there by people who can speak the truth without fear, because we're employed by you. We're employed by you. We don't work for media companies here. My ability to say what's on my mind and to speak the truth as I see the truth is largely, almost exclusively predicated upon the fact that I work for thousands of you people and not for one person. And yes, a couple of questions about this. There will be Stratosphere Lounge again tonight, so we'll take care of that too. Anyway, tomorrow there'll be new horrors for us to look at, new wonders as well, and new challenges. And all we have to do is just fight today. We don't have to fight for the rest of time. We just have to fight today, and that's what we do around here. So if you want to be a part of it, we'd love to have you. Just go to BillWhittle.com, click on Become a Member, and for 33 cents a day, you can be part of the team that's actually trying to stop this collapse and this deterioration and this flood through messaging. And messaging is it. That man that creature that killed all those people in London wasn't doing it because he thought that he could reduce significantly the population of the West or of Britain. He did it to terrorize them, which means that what he did was a message. He was sending a message to the West. And that's what suicide bombings are. They're a message to terrorize the West. And the only way that we can resist those kind of messages is to have messages of our own that simply say, not only are we not afraid of you, we know what you are. You're a bunch of uncivilized, barbarian cowards. And when the moment comes when you've done enough damage, you will understand what the world has not seen since 1945. You will someday, I have no doubt, you will keep poking this and poking it until one day you are going to see the United States of America all the way angry. We haven't been all the way angry since August 9th of 1945. But when we get all the way angry, you're not going to like it very much, because I know you think we're weak and stupid and lazy and all of that. And to some degree we are. But when you finally burn down to the end of that very, very long fuse that civilized people have, then the results will not be pleasant for you. And you might want to figure that into your calculations, and you would if you had any ability to reason, but you don't, and that's why you have the values that you have. All right, that ought to do it for our liberals who are tuning in by the millions, who want to have their heads just explode. Sorry for the late start today. We're going to be playing around with this thing again some more. It is not friendly software. It's cool software, and it does the job, but it's not very friendly. And we have to figure out how some of this stuff works, because some of it just doesn't. In any event, that's it for the day. Thanks very much for joining us here on Wednesday, 22nd of February, 2017. And we will see you tonight at the Stratosphere Lounge, and we'll see you tomorrow on Bill Whittle Live.